Okay, guys, if you don't know, I'm talking to Matt from WT Capital. He specialises in helping people create self-managed super funds so that you can actually buy property and retire with a shit ton of wealth. Especially if you're working in the mining industry, this is so important. I've just started doing this myself. There's a free ebook in my stand store. Go and download it right now, then come back and you can ask Matt some more questions. I'm just going to keep going on with some of the ones that we've got. What are the requirements for somebody to actually start up a self-managed super fund?
Yeah, really good question. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions around that. Legally, there is none. If you're working in Australia, you have super, anyone can choose whether it goes to an industry fund, a retail fund, or whether it's an SMSF. The question then becomes, at what point do you have enough? Obviously, there's, running costs of the SMS every year. At what point does it actually make good financial sense to do that? Obviously, if you have 10 grand and you start it, you're losing money, doesn't make any sense. Look, generally speaking, I mean, we've seen clients, even our clients, who've had, anything from 150K upwards that have bought, property, and they've been able to make, again, if it costs, say, 1,500 bucks a year to run an SMSF, and you buy a property that's, even if it's 400K, 20% deposits, 80K, 400K grows at 10%, that's 40K. I mean, you've almost 40x your running costs in 1 year. So yeah, I'd say, generally speaking, from about that 150K market, but probably starts to make sense just with running costs and obviously, the potential returns you're going to get on the investment as well.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that. And again, what you were saying earlier as well, you can have actually up to 6 people in the trust as well. So for people who don't necessarily have the 140, 150, you can actually amalgamate funds as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. Common, yeah. We've had a lot of families that set it up, and they might have 60K each or whatever, or 100K each or whatever it is. So yeah, you can have that's just recently. I think it was last tax year, ATO changed. It was 4, and now it's 6. So yeah, you can combine. It's common, and you can. I think another thing that people, they think that if you choose to set up an SMSF, you have to roll all of your super over into the SMSF. You can do a partial rollover. We have a lot of clients, if they're, I don't know, with Australian Super or CBUS or someone else, they might leave 100 grand in there, and maybe they roll 100 grand in, and their wife rolls 100 grand in, and they, have still got exposure to, the broader supermarket with one fund. A lot of them keep all their life insurance TPD because they're pretty good value policies out of that fund. And then they've got an investment property in another one. So that way, they're sort of getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah, definitely. And diversifying their portfolio, obviously. Okay, Clubby 320 has asked, how does it work? I've always been interested in it and have never had the right coaching for it. Well, firstly, Clubby, go up into my stand store and download the free ebook. Okay, sorry, I've got to call you Shane. Matt, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, so good question. A good question first and foremost. So I think that the first step is actually establishing the fund. Once we've got that established, we organise your finance pre-approval. So it's really breaking. If you think buying a property, we just break everything down into very sort of simple and achievable steps. Once the fund's set up, funds rolled over, bank accounts set up, finance approval in place, then we literally face-to-face work with every client, build out a strategy, depending on how old they are, how much time they've got left in the workforce, their maybe appetite for risk. Again, sometimes if we've got a client in WA, they might only want to buy in WA, so we'll build out a strategy around that. And then we start sourcing opportunities for them. A lot of the deals we look at are off market, so we can sort of put them together, do our due diligence on them, and then share them with the client before anyone else sees them. That generally allows us to buy at a better price because there's less competition. And then, once the client says, yep, we like that one, we draft all the offers, deal with the agents, negotiate, organize all the contracts, deal with the solicitors, manage the settlement, manage the formal finance with the brokers, all the inspections, all the insurances, all the property management, and then property settled. So,
could that be any easier? So especially for somebody like me who I'm time poor and I'm just like, look, just do it for me. I think if you're working FIFO, this is one of the easiest ways that you get your money actually going out there and making you more money instead of just sitting there doing nothing. And then you finally get to retirement age and you're just like, oh shit, I don't have enough money. Okay, thanks for the likes, thanks for the follows, guys. Make sure you follow Matt at WT Capital. Follow me, obviously. And if you could double tap the screen and repost this, that would be great so we can get it out to as many people as possible. Of course, there is a free ebook on this topic right now in my stand store. Go download it. Okay, how much does it cost, ballpark, from Jules to set up a self-managed super fund? Ballpark.
Yeah, so there's 2 parts. Just the SMSF establishment, if it was just that, you'd probably be looking about $1,650. And then when you add to, if you want to buy a property legally, if there's a loan attached to that property or a mortgage, we have to use what's called a bear trust. So basically, you've got the self-managed super fund, which is one trust, and you've got another bear trust, which sits inside and holds the property. So yeah, both of those, with the two trustee companies, the way we work, we set up for the client. We pay all the asset fees up front, all the government charges, all the lawyers' fees up front, and then when their super rolls over, we just deduct it from the super fund. That way, it means they can do everything, set everything up, and there's no out-of-pocket cost. There's not a dollar they have to outlay to get it going.
Amazing. So anyone who's watching this right now, go and get that ebook, go and have a chat to these guys and do this. Seriously, it's going to save you or make you money. And that's the name of the game. Okay. Tell me, what do you think is the biggest hurdle for a lot of Australians who don't know about this wealth building strategy or just haven't had the time to look into it? I guess that kind of answers that question, but maybe you want to elaborate on that one.
Yeah, I think it's good question. I think a lot of people just, they're scared. They just don't want to take action. I think for them, it's just maintaining the status quo is always easier. So I think that's the biggest one. But I think that if they have education, if they have the right support network, obviously if people have others around, friends, family that are investing in property and they see them having good results, then they probably they're probably maybe a little bit more ambitious and they want to try and emulate that. But for those that don't really think about retirement, I think a lot of people maybe they're just they maintain the status quo and they just put it, like you said, in the too hard basket, or they don't look too much more into it, or don't look to find the right people, develop the right network to help them achieve and reach their goals.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just too hard. Don't even know. You don't know what you don't know. So even me looking into it, I was just I go way down the rabbit hole of, what's going on, and too much information. It just seems too hard. So when I found you guys and I was just, basically stalking you guys for a while now, it was, I was like, this is a no-brainer here. And the Google reviews that you guys have, you can tell why you guys are the best in the business at this. So yeah, thank you, Perfume. Thank you for the gifts and stuff, guys. Much appreciated. If you haven't done it, follow WT Capital and follow me. Right, let's get back to some of these questions. All right, what is one success story that has absolutely just blown your mind in the whole time that you've been doing this for one of your clients?
We've had a few. The beauty of what we do is because we sort of manage the ongoing compliance and accounting of the funds every year. We're ordering valuations, so we literally have our finger on the pulse of every single property we buy for clients every single year. So we get to see the year-on-year change. But I think probably some of the most meaningful ones for me have been when I work with a client and we see buying property, buying a house is it's a paradigm shift for them. It changes in their mind what they think is possible for themselves, and that's probably the most powerful thing, because you can't put a dollar value on that. We had I've got a great client. His parents migrated from Tonga. He always thought he was just going to be a renter his whole life. He's got three awesome boys. They all play footy. And we helped him buy his first property. We had to fix some credit and move a few things around to get the first one. We bought the first one. He's got one in super and two outside of super. So for that first one, that did really well. We used some equity. We got into the second one, then set one up in the SMSF. And I remember last time I caught up with him for a coffee, he was saying, hey, I think I was talking to the wife, and we actually think we'd probably be able to afford private school for all three kids. And, this is a guy who thought that he'd be, Tongan parents that migrated here. He thought he'd just rent the rest of his life. And, he's not even 40 and he's got three properties. So that was pretty cool.
Amazing. That is so awesome. And I just seriously wish I'd have done this earlier. Okay. Thanks for that. And tell me, what is the hottest area to buy property that you think at this point in time?
Another good question. I think there's lots of areas, and that's, I think, properties, it's not one of those things that's binary. It's not like, there's only one spot you have to buy, and if you don't buy there, you lose. The reality is we've got, vacancy rates in many of the capital cities are sub 1%. They're literally the lowest they've been on record. So there's so much pressure on the existing housing supply, which is why we're seeing rents increase at the rate they have, and also prices increase at the rate they have, despite interest rates being higher. And interest rates, commonly referred to as a gravity of markets. When interest rates are high, prices are supposed to be low. And this is the first time it's really bucked that trend, where we had 14 consecutive rate rises, yet we had median house price, increases across all the capital cities. So it was, it was a big change. It was something that we hadn't sort of witnessed before. At the moment, look, I still think, Queensland has got a lot of growth left. There's a lot of the regional economies that are that are huge. Obviously, massive sources of employment. I think, the last 2-3 years, interstate migration, internal migration, Queensland sort of, knocked that out of the park. So there's a lot of people moving there, a lot of jobs being created. Rents are really high, so investors are, they're buying property that's growing straight away, and they're getting, really good cash flow. I think that's probably we're still focusing primarily there. There is some more opportunity popping up in Victoria, and I'll say that with a caveat. Victoria, the state has been absolutely smashed with debt. They've got more state debt than any of the other states. They pay $30 million in interest a day on their state debt, which is crippling. And naturally, you can understand why a lot of businesses would be sort of timid to go down there and operate. But in saying that, Melbourne is the most populated capital city in Australia now. So there's this huge amount of people down there. And just because of the battering that, Melbourne in particular, but this whole state's had, there are value opportunities popping up. And that's what we, as buyers agents and as property advisors, that's what we look for. Look for value. We don't care where it is. We just want to buy something for less than what it's worth in an area that's going to grow quickly.
Yeah, awesome, great. This is exciting for so many reasons. Mainly because I can't wait to see what you guys can do for me. Okay, so Roger has just said, still have your tax file number and New South Wales driver's license, went back to New Zealand. I don't know if there was another bit to add to that question there, Roger. Do you want to ask it again or reframe it or something like that? Guys, if you haven't done it, follow Matt from WT Capital. He's here today. We're talking about how you can utilise your own money in your super and buy property with it. So if you haven't done it as well, go up to my stand store. There's a free ebook, and that's how you can get to this man here, so he can do exactly what he's doing for me, for you as well, especially if you're a FIFO worker. Okay, right. Matt, what's one common myth that people just think about self-managed super funds?
Look, I think probably one of the most common ones, I think, you need to have, $500,000 or $1 million in it to do it. And that's probably the biggest one, or that it's really hard. And I think, as I said before, I think technology has made it so much easier. You think about even just the advent of DocuSign, even if it's an employment contract, people get sent a DocuSign, they open it in 1 second, it's signed. 10 years ago, people are, you've got an attachment, you've got to print a contract, you've got to scan, 30 pages and send it. And that made the process really cumbersome. And, particularly people who are not in front of a computer every day for work, it was unattainable, it was out of reach, it just wasn't realistic. So I think, the big myth is that it's, really hard, it takes a long time, or that, you need all this money, you need to be a multimillionaire to do it, which is completely wrong.
Yeah, awesome. And what about a business who wants to, obviously, owning my own business, it's been a wee bit of a few more hurdles to jump, but explain, if somebody's out there, they're running their own business, what is the difference between the average person who can just jump on and a business of what they need to do to actually set this up?
Yeah, awesome question. So I think, and that's more so with respect to super, doesn't matter. Anyone can set it up. That's fine. It just, when it comes to borrowing, that's when we have to obviously figure out which lender. I mean, some lenders have better credit policies when it comes to people who are self-employed or have a company. So we just look at going to a lender. Generally speaking, if you've got, whether it's ABN or a company, if you've been trading for 12 months, and you've got your, some lenders will even use draft financials. You've got all your paperwork there. They'll work off that. Some lenders will want them. You can do what's called a low doc, and then once you've got your 2 full years tax returns, you can just go to any of the lenders. So there's a bit more flexibility there. But so that'd be the big change just with lending. Not so much super. Doesn't matter anyone's circumstance. I mean, you can set up an SMSF if you don't have a job. So anyone can do that. It's just when it comes to lending, obviously we need to make sure we figure out based on where the applicant is. Is it self-employed? Is it ABN? Is it company? And we just figure out, okay, which lender we take that to.
Yep. Okay, cool. I should have asked you as well, how much time have you got? Because this could be an all-day conversation.
I'm probably good for another half. I've got a stack of offers out there for clients. I've got to hustle some real estate agents and close some deals.
That's a go. All right, no worries. You just tell me and I'll wrap it up at any stage. But we've got a couple more questions here. Thanks, Calvin. What is the criteria? I only have 120K in my super. Am I eligible? Good question there, Calvin.
I mean, look, in terms of eligible, definitely you can still do it. Anyone can do it. It'll just be a case of we don't try and stretch it too far because we want to get the best possible return for the client. And when we're, stretching it too far, putting too much pressure on it, it doesn't allow us to look at the best quality properties. I mean, generally speaking, around that 140, 150K is optimal. You could look, I don't know whether it, be an opportunity or available. But if you did like what they call a non-concessional contribution, you could chuck 20K in into your super fund, bump the balance up, then you could do it that way. If you've got an owner-occupied property or an investment property in your personal name, we could do an equity release. We could help you with that. We do all the finance for that, and then you could take, say 30K out or whatever, and then deposit that into super fund, and then obviously you'd have enough. So lots of different ways about that. We could help. Happy to discuss in more detail if that's of interest.
Yeah, cool. So if you have just joined this, there's a free ebook in my Stan store. Go and download that now. You can also get in contact with Matt. Make sure you follow these guys and me for content to help to get you basically make and save you money. Okay, cool. And also thanks for watching the live today. If you've got any, drop them down in the comment section below, or I'll just keep going through my list of about 30 more questions. Okay, how does leveraging within the self-managed super fund work, and what are the risks and key benefits? Thanks, Calvin.
Yeah, really good questions. So I suppose with leverage, similar to if you're buying an owner-occupied property, it's debt, right? So you need to use debt effectively. When we borrow, there's going to be repayments. So yeah, I think going back to what I said earlier, really working hard and being diligent, figuring out cash flow is imperative, because if we can, we want to use the money effectively, we want to borrow, but we want to balance the rental income with obviously the repayments. So really figuring out, what kind of LVR for the target property is going to be most appropriate. I think that's really important. The risk is the same with as with any amount of debt, it needs to be repaid. The key difference is in super, the actual loan structure, it's called an LRBA, or a limited recourse borrowing arrangement. That means the property sits in a bare trust, so it's segregated from the other assets in the super fund. So there is more protection. As the name states, there's less recourse with a loan like that than say if you had a home loan with CBA for your owner-occupied property. But yeah, same sort of rules apply. It's debt. We want to make sure we're responsible with it. We adequately, calculate cash flow, figure out what the LVR should be based on the rent we're going to get for the property. So yeah, same sort of rules apply.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Okay. So we've got here, Roger, in super and homeowner in New Zealand, will I still be qualified? Yeah.
So has super. Yeah, so we wouldn't be able to use, if they're in NZ, we wouldn't be able to use NZ income or NZ pay slips to then go and borrow in Australia and buy a property in Australia.
Yeah, all right, no worries. So yeah, you're going to have to come over here and then probably transfer that over into an Australian super account, and then you'll be able to be eligible for that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Earl has asked, how can a self-managed super fund help somebody retire years earlier?
Yeah, good question. Rudimentary, but I think one we get all the time. And I think we've actually got a calculator for this where you plug in basically your amount you've got in super now. And then you just say, if you want to retire in 20 years or whatever it is, you put in the years. And then based on obviously returns, average returns, it'll calculate what we have then. Then we put in the same number into a calculator just with property. We're ultra conservative. We just take an average, like a national average capital growth rate. And it's purely because of leverage. As I said, you can use a loan. So the loan gives you the exposure to a much larger asset. So you can make your super work much harder without the need for it to perform, or grow, if it's in an industry or retail fund, grow at, 10% or in excess of 10% per year. Just by using leverage, we can grow and then compound that year on year. So, simply, if you can make more money, then you can retire earlier because you have obviously a larger lump sum to then live off, which obviously means you can remove yourself from the workforce.
Amazing. That's my plan anyway. Okay, and when it comes to like FIFO workers specifically, right? So, or just anyone, okay? So they need to be, I think I heard you say you don't need a job before, was that right?
Yeah, anyone you think about, anyone can have a super fund. They can choose where their super goes. So to set up an SMSF, you don't need to be working. It's just when we obviously to show, to borrow, we need to show income. So we need to be working if we want to borrow and buy a property. But to just set it up, I've had clients before who've been working, they've stopped working, and they've bought, they've set up an SMSF and they've just bought some shares. So you can, that's with no leverage, so you can do that. But yeah, to buy property, we're using a loan, then obviously we need to demonstrate that there's capacity to repay the loan.
Yeah, and would you say like most super funds, they diversify in what they're investing in, but obviously if you're going into a self-managed super fund and you're predominantly buying property, would you say that would be the more safer option?
Look, I think there's definitely less volatility, right? So I think, yeah, and again, property is in Australia, we seem to think people are just, they're comfortable. It's a physical asset, it's not going to disappear overnight. You can touch it, you can feel it, you can see it. So I think a lot of people, there's just this associated comfort with property, the old saying, bricks and mortars. So yeah, look, I think it's just because you can use debt to buy it, you can buy, a bigger asset. It's just a really good asset to have in the self-managed super fund, which is an environment where you pay very little tax.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. Good morning from Nigeria. Hello.